Alex Eala was trained inside one of the most respected clay court systems in the world. So, explain this. Why does she keep losing on clay? That question is not going away. Because this is not one bad match. Not bad luck. Not a rough draw. This is a pattern. And in tennis, patterns are where the truth hides. Watch her closely. She starts sharp, confident, clean ball striking. She steps inside the court and takes control early. Then the rally stretches. 5 shots, 6, 8, and suddenly the level drops. The ball lands shorter, the margin disappears. The same forehand that looked dangerous now sits up just enough for the opponent to reset. And the match slips. Again. So what is actually happening here? Is it her? Is it the coaching? Or is it something deeper inside the system that built her game? Because here is the part nobody can explain easily. The Nadal Academy is built on clay. Everything about it, the philosophy, the training, the identity. It is designed to create players who can outlast you, outthink you, outwork you in long rallies. And yet, Eala keeps breaking down in the exact moments that system is supposed to prepare her for. That is not normal. That is a contradiction. And once you see it, you cannot ignore it. Fans are starting to notice. Analysts are asking harder questions. And the conversation is shifting from frustration to something more dangerous. Doubt. Not just about results, but about whether something fundamental is off. Because if this keeps happening, it stops being about form. It stops being about confidence. It becomes structural. The kind of problem that does not fix itself. And that is where this gets uncomfortable. Because if the system is part of the issue, then the answer is not train harder. It is not push more. It means something about her development path might not match who she actually is as a player. But before you jump to that conclusion, you need to understand what she was expected to become in the first place. Because without that, none of this makes sense. This is not just about one bad stretch on clay. It feels bigger, and that is exactly why people are starting to care. Alex Eala is not a prospect anymore. She is already proven. Junior Grand Slam champion, wins against players people thought were out of her reach. A game that clearly belongs at a high level. That changes the conversation. Because when a player at that level shows the same weakness again and again, it is not dismissed. It becomes a trajectory question. Where is this going? And here is where expectation becomes pressure. When she joined the Nadal Academy, the assumption was clear. This is a system that builds fighters. Players who understand patience. Players who can survive long rallies and slowly take control. Especially on clay. That should have been her advantage. But instead, clay has become the place where everything feels unstable. And that matters more than people think. Because clay is not optional. It is a development tool. It exposes spacing issues. It exposes decision-making under pressure. It forces you to deal with longer points. If something breaks there, it usually exists everywhere. Look across multiple tournaments. You start to see the same thing. She controls early exchanges, then loses control once rallies extend. That is not random. That is repeatable. And repeatable problems shape careers. Now think about what that means long-term. Ranking depends on consistency. Confidence depends on trust in your game. Development depends on solving problems, not hiding from them. So if this does not get fixed, it does not just slow her down. It caps her ceiling. That is why this conversation is getting louder. Not because people doubt her talent, but because they can see how high that talent could go. If you have watched her, you have felt it. That mix of excitement and frustration, you see the level, but something does not connect. And that gap is what keeps you watching. If that is exactly how you feel, stay with this. Because what is happening here is not obvious. And once you see it, you will not look at her game the same way again. So now the real question is simple. If this is not bad form, what exactly is breaking down on clay? Watch the matches, not the highlights, the points. This is where it becomes clear. Take a typical clay match. First few games look good. She is aggressive, taking the ball early, controlling tempo. Then the rally stretches, and something breaks. Her depth drops by just a few inches. That is all it takes. The opponent resets. The point resets. Now she is no longer in control. One short ball. That is all it takes. Now ask yourself this. Why does it always happen after the rally extends? Because it is not one match. Different opponents. Same pattern. Strong start. Early control. Then slow erosion once the rally turns into a grind. Not sudden, gradual. One miss long. One miss into the net. One neutral ball that gives up position. And the point flips. So here is the uncomfortable question. If she was trained to handle long rallies, why does she look least comfortable in them? Now go deeper. Opponents are not overpowering her. They are not taking risks. They are waiting. They stretch the rally on purpose. Add one more ball, then one more, then one more. They are not trying to beat her. They are waiting for her to break, and she often does. That is not bad luck. That is a weakness being targeted. So now the problem evolves. It is not just internal, it is external. Opponents see it, plan for it, execute it. So why has it not been fixed? Because this is not just about clay speed. It is something inside her tolerance for extended pressure. And the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. In many matches, she wins a majority of short points. Under 4 shots, she looks dangerous. But beyond that, the numbers drop fast. That split should not exist for a clay-trained player. So what does that mean? Her strengths are not aligned with the surface she was expected to master. And that leads to the real question. If her strengths are somewhere else, why is she still playing into a pattern that does not fit her? Because technically, nothing looks broken. Clean strokes, solid movement, smart early decisions, no obvious flaw. Yet the outcome is the same, again and again. At this point, it stops looking like a slump. It looks structural. And that leads to one possibility. What if the issue is not what she is doing wrong on clay? What if the issue is what she was never meant to do there? What if the problem is not failure? What if it is mismatch? That idea feels wrong at first, because everything about her path says she should be a clay player, but her game tells a different story. Look at how she wins points at her best. Early contact, taking time away, finishing quickly. That is not classic clay tennis. Clay rewards patience, repetition, endurance. But she plays like someone who wants to compress the point. That is a different identity. Now imagine forcing that identity into a system built for the opposite. It is like training a sprinter for a marathon. The training is not wrong, the athlete is not wrong, but the fit is not perfect. And that gap shows up in small moments. A slight hesitation, a rushed decision, a ball hit too early or too safe. On clay, that is enough to lose control, because every extra shot is a test. Not just of technique, of identity. Do you stay patient? Or do you try to escape? Right now, she is caught between both. And that is the twist. This is not just a weakness. It is a signal that her ceiling might be somewhere else. So if you were building her game from scratch, knowing this, would you still shape her around clay patterns? Or would you lean into her aggressive instincts? Think about that, because this is where frustration turns into possibility. If you see it differently, say it. The best insights always come from people who pay attention, and once you see it this way, everything aligns. The fast starts, the slow breakdowns, the discomfort in long rallies. It all fits, but theory is not enough. The numbers have to match, and when you look at them, they do. Start with point length. She dominates short exchanges. Under 4 shots, she is dangerous. Beyond that, the drop is immediate. That is not normal for clay. Clay players usually improve as rallies extend. She does the opposite. Now look at serve impact. On faster courts, her serve creates advantage. On clay, that advantage fades. Returns come back. Points extend. And that is where the issue starts. Compare her to players at similar levels. They are not necessarily stronger. but they are more stable in neutral rallies. They survive longer, and that is enough, because matches at this level are decided by one extra ball. She is losing too many of those, but here is the key insight. This is not failure. This is uneven development, and that is normal. Some players build aggression first, then add patience later. She is still in that process. So instead of seeing collapse, you are seeing exposure. Opponents push her into unfinished parts of her game. Right now, that works. But if she adds even a small layer of patience, everything changes. 2 extra shots. That is all it takes. Now opponents cannot wait. Now they have to create, and that shifts pressure back onto them. So did the system fail her? No, but it has not fully aligned those tools yet, and that is the difference. So what you are watching is not a breakdown. It is a transition, and that changes the final question. Not what went wrong, but what happens when it finally clicks. Because if she adds that missing layer, her game becomes dangerous on every surface. Not just one. So now it comes down to this. Does she adapt? Does she reshape her identity? Or does she stay caught in between? Because that answer defines everything that comes next. And if you want to see how that plays out, follow this closely. Because the next step in her development might be the one that changes everything.